is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Very pleasant good afternoon on a Thursday, and we look forward to spending the next 1, 2, 3, 4, who knows how many more hours with you as we get you ready for the weekend. We'll even talk a little bit about the Super Bowl today. That is Sunday, in case you haven't heard. A lot else to discuss. National Signing Day is under a week, and we'll talk to Tom Luganville about that coming up a little bit later in the show. We'll also talk to former Georgia coach Jim Donnan about recruiting, also about the situation at Florida, which has become a big topic on this program. And yes, Bruce Pearl, the Auburn basketball coach, nearly pulled a big road win out last Saturday night in Tuscaloosa. Didn't happen. Lost to A&M on Tuesday night. But Saturday returns home, and I mean home. 9 years in Knoxville. Nearly a Final Four appearance. Made that program relevant. They became number one in the country. And then it all crashed and burned. Pearl fired, accused of lying and misleading the NCAA, banned from coaching for 3 years. He went to work for ESPN, and now he's at Auburn, and he returns to Knoxville this weekend. It will be a special weekend for him. We'll talk to him about the homecoming. I understand many people will gather Friday night in Knoxville. Fundraiser. He's raised millions of dollars for local charities, and they'll do that again on Friday night. When we talk to him, I'll ask him about the situation with the current Tennessee coach, Donnie Tyndall, who is embattled and may not survive the season based on which report you believe the most. He's having a pretty good year, but he is clearly on the hot seat, and the irony of that is that Bruce Pearl heading back to Knoxville this weekend in good stead, and the current Tennessee coach may be on his way out. Speaking of homecomings, we've all had them. This year they kidded me on SEC Nation that I had them almost every weekend. I went to Ole Miss one weekend, which was right around the corner from my hometown of Memphis. I went to Tuscaloosa, which is right around the corner from where I lived for nearly 30 years. I went to Knoxville, where I went to school. I mean, I had homecomings pretty much every weekend and was treated great at all of them. But sometimes homecomings don't work out so well. Just think about what coach may go someplace and barely survive. Urban to Florida, ooh, I don't think he'd get a good greeting, do you? Calipari to Memphis. Calipari owned Memphis. Not anymore. He owns Lexington, which is a bigger basketball school. Brett Bielema would not be well received in Wisconsin. Bobby Petrino to Arkansas or Atlanta or anywhere. I mean, Bobby Petrino can't go out his door and be well received. But if he did go play at Arkansas, if Louisville ever signed a home and home, wouldn't you want him riding into the stadium? Wouldn't you want Bobby Petrino riding into the stadium on a Harley? Hashtag homecoming is what we're having some fun with today. You can hit us up on Twitter at Finebaum and hashtag homecoming. What homecoming would you like to see? Right now, my personal favorite may just be Urban to Gainesville. A lot of Vills in the SEC. What about you?
I'm thinking about Brett Bielema returning to Wisconsin for one specific reason. The relationship between Bielema and Barry Alvarez, to me, is so interesting. I mean, these two work so well together, but that divorce was ugly. I know that they have respect for one another.
I doubt it.
Maybe not. I mean, who knows? It seems that way anyway. But if you want to send Bielema and the Hogs up north to play his style of ball that he started at Wisconsin against the Badgers, that would be fun to watch. Another one that wasn't listed, Vanderbilt, James Franklin. A lot of buzz last offseason if Penn State went down to Vanderbilt. I wondered how he would be received because he built that program up, and a lot of people think that James Franklin left them with nothing.
Yeah, a friend of mine just suggested another homecoming. And that would be, there it is for those watching, hashtag homecomings. Love to hear from you. We'll start putting your tweets on the screen. This friend suggested Derek Mason homecoming to Stanford. That's where he used to coach. He was on the staff out there. The only interesting part, according to my friend, one-way ticket. Can't come back. We'll take your phone calls at 855-242-7285. I'm trying to think, where would you go and be well-received or not well-received?
Me personally?
Yeah, I mean, if you were doing your own homecoming.
Obviously going to go back to Philadelphia. I'd be well received there.
Yeah.
I don't know if the people at Penn State,
the couple of people in Oxford that don't want to see you.
Oh, are you kidding me? Come on, the people. I've said many times I love the people down there. The square is one of my favorite places to go. Although I tell you what, we were treated so well. I guess down south in Stark Vegas.
Yeah,
I think I'd be pretty well received there as well. Enjoyed our visit.
Yeah, no, of course we talked about this the other day. I'll be going back to Oxford in a couple of months, and. Yeah, that was we went there twice this year. That was the only double hit, but that's a pretty special place. So that's going to be one of our themes today, and a lot of interesting possibilities. Right now, my personal favorites are. I mean, I'm calling the negative, of course. Pearl will be well received in Knoxville. You can count on that. We'll talk to Bruce later in the show. I think Urban. First of all, Ohio State's not playing at Gainesville, but Ohio State could end up playing Florida. They played a couple of years ago in a bowl game. Some other ones out there would be interesting as well, and we'll get your take on that. I mean, don't give me Saban to Baton Rouge. I've lived and died that one countless times. It's passé. Been there, done that. Let's grab some calls here on this Thursday, and Wayne is next up. Wayne is first up, actually, in Florida. Wayne, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hey, sir. Wayne Smith. How are you today?
I'm well.
I live in the great state of Florida. Just start turning your show on. I saw where you're talking about the discussion of homecomings. Mm-hmm. Sir, we don't want Urban back. You know that. Matter of fact, we want to start a petition. Gator Nation, wake up out there. We want to start a petition where he cannot ever be inducted into our Ring of Honor. That backstabbing SOB should never be allowed back in Gainesville.
Yeah, I don't think, in spite of two national titles, Spurrier, I was down there, what was it, about 8 or 9 years ago when Spurrier was inducted during the Alabama-Florida weekend. It was a cool deal.
Yes, sir. Paul, can I ask you a question? Do you not agree that, like I said, the way he left us hanging and everything like that, like I said, he doesn't deserve to be honored as a Gator.
Hold on, Wayne. Let me bring. I hate to be the voice of reason here on the Histrionics channel. Yes. But Urban didn't leave. I mean, he left. For those who don't remember, Urban announced his retirement, his resignation from Florida, the day 2 or 3 days before the Sugar Bowl at the end of the 2009 season, where they nearly won the SEC. They were number 1 in the country and lost to Alabama. He announced his retirement. Then the next day he took it back. Big mistake.
That's when we started hating.
Yeah, well, he stuck around a year, and the season was a major disappointment. And then he quit. And then he just quit. He didn't go anywhere. He just quit. He walked away and wanted to spend more time with his family. And then the next day he took a job at ESPN.
Yes, sir. He didn't want to spend time with his family. His family didn't want to be around him.
Okay. Well.
Anyway, sir, I love your show. Urban, keep your ass up north. We don't love you. Bye.
Okay. Yeah. That's my personal favorite. I can't vote, but you can tweet it for me. Urban to Gainesville. Wow.
A couple coming through on Twitter already. John says Kiffin to USC. We've done the whole Kiffin to Knoxville, Kiffin to USC. What about Gene Chizik now with North Carolina back to Auburn? Jameis Winston to Publix also was.
Gene Chizik, I think, still lives in Auburn.
Well, he'd be well received there, is my point, right? He won a national championship.
I think Auburn people are indifferent toward Gene Chizik, which most people who meet Gene Chizik are indifferent. Martha is in Destin. Good afternoon, Martha.
Hey, Mr. Paul Finebaum, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
We're good. One thing I wanted to comment on, I'll comment on the Urban Meyer to Gainesville in just a minute, but I wanted to comment on the fact that y'all are on the 100.3 ticket down here now. Yeah,
I heard that. We've made a couple of radio shifts in recent months, in both Mobile and in the Destin,
Panhandle, yes.
Panhandle area, and we're delighted. That's a huge market for us from the Mobile Bay all the way over to Destin. By the way, Destin's one of my favorite places in the world, so we're glad to be on down there. So if I can ever sneak away
you're
from
gonna have
here.
to come on. Yeah, there you go. You need to come on down and vacation down here with us.
Well,
I'm here
I
from
was there.
Destin.
I was there for just one day last May for the SEC meetings. This time I may have to sneak in a week early.
There you go. We'd come on down. We'd get you out on a charter boat or something.
Sounds like a good plan. Martha, count me in.
Hey, I got some inside connections for you.
I bet.
But anyway, I think Urban Meyer could come back to Gainesville anytime. I don't know what all the reasons why everybody don't like him so much. I just know that he brought in some of the greatest players that the Gators has ever had, and Timmy Tebow and all the ones that come in with his class, And so I don't understand the hate there. So
yeah, somebody tells me
that
Urban will get back to Gainesville sooner than Aaron Hernandez.
I hear you. Oh, Lord. He did bring that one in, too, didn't he?
Yeah, he sure did.
But anyway, other than that, also I wanted to find out if you've heard anything on the Tebow being back in the NFL.
Well, yeah, I talked to Tim last week, and that wasn't the subject of the conversation, but I doubt it. I really think there was an opportunity this year. I think Arizona was probably the team that was looking at him. They were in trouble as they headed toward the playoff with the quarterback situation. They were down to about their second or third string, I think third string. And, I don't know where Tim is on that. I think he would like to play in the NFL, but I think that opportunity, unfortunately, is beginning to slip away.
Well, I figured he might get a chance with this NFL was it the combine thing, for the free agents, and I was thinking maybe he'd get on the team like that. And I'm hoping he does.
I doubt it, but anyway, thank you very much for the call. A lot of different ones. We're getting some good ones and some other ones. Homecomings is one of our themes today. It's a fun little topic. We'll get more phone calls at 855-242-7285. Jim Donnan coming up shortly. Bruce Pearl later on. We'll also go to the Super Bowl, and Tom Luganville checks in on National Signing Day. Don't go anywhere.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We welcome you back. A number of guests to come, including Bruce Pearl. That's how this all began, the genesis of the conversation. Bruce heading back to Knoxville this weekend. Auburn showing a lot of signs. They've had a couple of good wins this year, particularly against Xavier. They nearly beat Alabama on the road, but I'm not sure beating Alabama is a barometer of anything these days, at least in basketball. We'll grab some phone calls here and check in with Jared, who is in Tennessee. What do you say, Jared?
Well, Mitch, how are you, buddy?
Doing great.
I listen to your show all the time, and I heard people calling from Alabama talking about Lane Kiffin's stand and how anybody could win with that talent. And that's true, man. Alabama does have a lot of talent, but I got some, his one long year in Tennessee, he had Jonathan Crompton, who really wasn't a world beater, but he had 28 yards, which is 8th all-time at UT under Kiffin. Second in the SEC that year, 27 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. He had his first career 300-yard passing game. He also set Tennessee mark for passing yards and a half with 305. And went 142 consecutive pass attempts without throwing an interception, which was one short of setting that record. So, he is despised in Tennessee, but I'll give him props. He is a good coach, regardless of who he's got. He can coach.
Yeah, I really agree with you on that. I thought Kiffin did a nice job there. He left under one of the worst farewells I've ever seen. But show me a good divorce. You might read about them on the internet. Maybe everybody's happy, sings Kumbaya, but when you have a coach that leaves as late as he did, it was second week of January, it's going to be ugly, and it was. And Tennessee fans, I hope, get over it. It's ridiculous to keep harboring that. You got more important things to be concerned about. Lance is up next. Lance also in the state of Tennessee. Tennessee is beginning to move Alabama out of the way on this show.
Hey, don't worry, boys. I left my script at home today.
Okay.
hey, man. I just want to say, I think what I tell you yesterday about recruiting, even if Will Muschamp would have stayed in Florida, I think the recruits that are following him to Auburn would have went to Florida State. Because all year long, I watched the recruiting on ESPNU. I don't believe in Rivals.com. If it ain't coming from Tom Luganville, I don't pay no attention to it. But I think what hurt Florida's recruiting is when you lost at home to Vanderbilt, Georgia Southern, and then you turn around this year, and the way you lost to LSU, and the way Missouri kicked your head in, I think the best thing Coach Mack can do to get the recruiting turned around is go undefeated at home this year. No matter the overall record, he has to win all his home games. And I think that right there will help recruiting more than anything, Paul. What do you think?
Well, I don't think that's the bottom line on recruiting. I think Mac just needs to show that he knows what he's doing, that he gets it. I mean, you can't hide behind Nick Saban's skirt any longer. That helped him get the job. That dominated the press conference. He's folksy. He's different. He'll either I don't think there'll be any gray area with Jim McElwain. I think he'll once he gets over the first signing date, I think he'll show that he's the man, or it won't work. And which one it will be, I have no earthly idea. I tend to think he'll make it.
I agree with you, Paul. I say one thing about Coach Mack, though. I think he understands matchups. And people say all they want about Gator talent, because I know nobody watched the games because Wayne gave you nothing to watch. But DeMarcus Robinson would have been a 1,000-yard receiver if Jeff Driscoll had any damn accuracy down the field. And Kelvin Taylor, he's bad. I think Coach Mack's going to really use him a lot. And Harris is a bad man, Treon Harris. I mean, that kid can play quarterback, man. And our defense is top-notch. I didn't expect Jonathan Bullard
Lance,
to come back.
I hope the team is as good as you can talk about the Gators. Let's check in with Carl in Arkansas. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm a first-time caller, a long-time listener, and I really enjoy your program.
Thank you.
What I'm going to go back is a few years, maybe the middle 1950s, with Bud Wilkinson, the Oklahoma Sooners, and he also had a great assistant coach by the name of Gomer Jones, who instituted the Sooner drill for all the pros nowadays. But what team or what coach do you think could possibly win 47 straight like Wilkinson and Gomer Jones did for the Oklahoma Sooners?
Thank you. I don't think it'll ever happen again. Urban Meyer probably has put the best run together in recent years when you think about his 3 years at Ohio State. He lost one game last year, 2 games last year. He lost the championship game and the bowl game, and he lost one game this year. But the odds of anyone going 47 straight, and I wasn't around for that streak, but I think they lost a game and then they got it going again. I mean, it was with one loss in the middle of the streak, it went on forever, or so it seemed. You don't see that. I mean, Miami had a run years 10, 15 years ago. Alabama's had a couple of runs, but going undefeated for that long a period, I think, is virtually impossible. Ron in Ocala, for those of you who don't know, is not too far from Gainesville. What do you say, Ron?
What's going on, Paul?
Doing great, thank you.
My favorite show. So you were saying a minute ago that all we've done is Tennessee, 10-0, right? So I was just looking through stats, and we're 25-0 since 1990 against Kentucky. I'm pretty sure it's something nasty since 1990 against Georgia. And by the way, let me talk about Georgia for a second. That 08 team they had was better than the 07 team. And the only reason why they couldn't get over that hump was because of their coach. And that's just what that is. Because I remember when Spikes hit Moreno on the first play of that game, on the first series, he pretty much took the heart out of that whole team. So, and you had Urban Meyer on that other side. So, and then you can go into Kentucky, like I said, Vanderbilt, we handle our business. We run the East. That's who we are. Now, Tennessee has always been that guy who's been the second, the one that comes up against us. And that's never going to change. And it's not. And
hold on. Listen. Let me try to. Ron, hold on. I need to try to understand this.
Go ahead.
What has Florida done in 5 years to encourage or enable its fan base to talk the way you are talking and others are talking? Would you explain it to me? What have you done?
Well, to be honest with you, we haven't done anything other than do what we would expect to do during a abysmal time when we had a horrible coach. If you got a horrible coach, I don't care how much talent you have, how much brain
Ron,
you got.
that's not my problem, though. I mean, your athletic director, your president, stuck with this horrible coach. And it's always easy after the fact, but I mean, I just don't. I mean, I don't get it. Florida has had one good season since 2008. Excuse me, since 2009.
It's not to say that Tennessee or Georgia or Kentucky have been impressive as well.
Okay, so you took Kentucky to overtime this year at home. Tennessee, you have a nice streak against, and you do incredibly beat Georgia. But what else have you done? You beat Alabama lately?
That's the point. At this point, we've got a team. See, it's not just not a.
What about LSU? How'd that Missouri game go this year at the Swamp?
All of those.
How'd that Georgia Southern game go? How'd the last couple of FSU games go? I mean, come on, let's talk some facts here, Gator fans.
Lady talking about Tennessee. That lady who called yesterday, whatever she's saying. Every time we play against you guys, don't we win? So now you got to come to the Swamp this year with a whole lot of energy.
Well, let me tell you something, Ron. Ron, let me speak. I can't speak for the Tennessee fan, but I will tell you right now, as an observer of college football, as of this day, could change. There's not a Tennessee fan in America that's sweating one drop right now that's concerned at the least about that game with the Swamp. Tennessee has bigger fish to fry than the Florida Gators, in spite of what the record has indicated.
It'll just be another loss for them then. If that's the
I
case.
doubt it. I really doubt it.
You doubt that?
I really doubt that.
Have you seen our defensive roster? Are you serious, Paul?
No, I've seen the Gators play. I promise you. I saw them up close a couple of times last year. Was not impressed.
Okay, let me ask you this question.
Okay.
What has Butch Jones done other than Cincinnati? Fine, but that's Cincinnati. It's the SEC, buddy. What has he done to make you feel like he's just going to come into the Swamp and dominate the Florida football game?
Listen, I haven't used the word dominate. I'm just.
Well, what makes you think they're going to win?
Well, what Butch Jones has done, slow down. What Butch Jones has done the last 2 years, while the Gator program has slipped into the abyss, is he's put together.
Stop it. We can never
Gator fans just can't carry on the conversation. You have to interrupt.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Tennessee is a hot program. It's recruiting at a record pace. It will get it turned around. This is how programs are built. Your program, you stuck with the coach, which is fine. And then you fire the coach, and then you praise the coach. And what does that coach do? He and one of his top assistants, directly or indirectly, move some key players to another school, and Gator fans are talking smack. This is very, very entertaining.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Let's move along and talk to D. Mays in Atlanta. How are you, D. Mays?
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
Really well, thank you.
Good. Well, I'm from the South, and I can put together an articulate thought. So if you change the format of the show with Jim not calling in, I guess I'm going to have to listen to Dr. Phil or somebody like that. And I really don't want to do that.
Please stick around.
All right. Well, I got a question for you, Paul. My mom grew up in Starkville, Mississippi, and she is a huge Mississippi State fan. And last year, in the beginning of the year, she was selling me on Mississippi State and Ole Miss. But I'm not buying either one of those teams. I wasn't buying last year. I told her they're going to both lose about 3 to 4 games, and I feel the same way about this season coming up. And she's still trying to sell me now that Dak is back. She's really trying to sell me on Mississippi State. I wanted to get your opinion and your thoughts on those two teams.
Well, I think they're both in good shape. Now what's good shape in Mississippi, though? I think having been in and out of that state 3 or 4 times last fall at the peak of the rage twice in October, then we later went there for the Egg Bowl. I mean, it was a different story. The air went out of the balloon, but I still think Mississippi State had a pretty good season, all things considered. I mean, they were number 1 in the country a long time, and I think expectations will be reasonably high for both programs next year. I'd have to study it a little bit more, and I will, but I don't think they'll be quite at the center of attention next season as they were last season.
Well, I agree with that, and I keep telling my mom I see another 4-loss season coming up for Mississippi State, but she's trying to sell me on it, so I just wanted to hear what you had to say.
Well, let me give you some advice, DeMays, from someone a little bit older. Let your mom enjoy her time, okay? I mean, if she wants to hype the Bulldogs, let her hype them. You don't have to be right about this. You probably will be, but let her enjoy a rare moment in the sun for Mississippi State football.
Well, I agree with you, Paul. I'll do that.
Okay.
Good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I wish my mom's gone, but I wish I would have kept my mouth shut a little more back in the day, because don't argue with your mom about the SEC. I mean, that's not smart. Let her be right. Let's continue with more calls here, and Rob is up next in Huntsville, Alabama. Hey, Rob.
How's it going, Paul?
Pretty well, thank you.
I was going to jump on. I think the caller before was talking about, I guess, how Jim calls the show and rarely talks about sports anymore, and I guess how good he was at baseball about 30 years ago. But got a couple questions about Auburn. Do you know by chance what the percentages are that we're going to sign five-star defensive end Byron Cowart?
Let me say this, Rob. I know what I read. You may know more than that. I talk to experts, and we'll talk to Tom Luganbill here in a short while. I mean, I think the perception is, or at least the conventional wisdom is, that will happen. But and that would be huge.
Do you think the Tigers are going to get back to the championship within the next year or two, or are we staged up for that?
I think so, yeah. I mean, listen, right now, familiar story, like last year and the year before, I think Auburn and Alabama will be the top two teams picked in the SEC, and is it Auburn's turn? I'm not sure, but I don't think there's any question Auburn is loaded for the future under Gus Malzahn, and now, obviously, with Will Muschamp. Johnny is up. Actually, Johnny, I'll get it right. Troy is up next. Hey, Troy, good afternoon.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, Troy, what's going on with you?
I just want to tell you something.
Okay.
The Arkansas Razorbacks are going to win the SEC West next year, Paul Finebaum. Let me tell you why.
Now you're a pastor, correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
Now, just because you're a pastor doesn't mean you're good at predicting football.
But it does mean I have certain intuitions about the Lord.
That is correct. And by the way, I'm all ears right now. If you have a pipeline, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. They're returning 4 offensive linemen on a very good line.
Okay, I'll buy that.
They're returning a 3-year. Well, it will be his 3rd year starting at QB. They're returning 2 of the best running backs in the SEC. And they kept Rob Smith as defensive coordinator. I'm high on the hogs. So
let me ask you, Troy, what type of church do you pastor?
Southern Baptist, sir.
Southern Baptist.
Yes, sir.
I am not going to argue with a Southern Baptist from Fayetteville, Arkansas, so I'll just take you at your word.
That's a good idea.
Thank you. Appreciate the call.
See ya.
We go from a pastor in Fayetteville to Charles from Railtown.
Country boy from Railtown, loveless little community on the plains. What a show you got today, Paul Finebaum. Oh, you got all these Tennessee fans calling in. They sound like they've been smoking crack or something. They is crazy about.
Hey, Charles, that pastor, if he is correct, that Southern Baptist pastor, if he is correct, that means your Auburn Tigers will not be going to the championship game next season.
Well, I don't care what that pastor says, Paul. I'm not a Southern Baptist. I'm a Church of Christ member, proud of it. And I tell you what, I don't pay no attention to what anybody says. I don't care if he's a pastor or the president of the United States. It don't bother me one bit. All I know is what I know, and I know what I know. I know Auburn's going to be up there fighting for the national championship. Anybody that don't know that need to know more about Auburn. If they'll listen to me, they'll learn more about Auburn. Now, you got old straight jacket Jim calling in. After that beat down I give him, I'm surprised he even calls into the show anymore. I prove what a moron he is. He can't even name me 3 Alabama football players. He can't even call in and talk about sports on the #1 call-in show in America. What's the matter with that moron? Why do you take his calls anyway? I'm getting tired of hearing you and him buddy up like y'all the biggest friends in the world. He calls in. I tell you, let me give you an example of one of the worst calls I ever heard in my life. When Jim called in not long ago and said he was eating a sneaker bar. He said, I know you like them too, Paul. You like them sneaker bar. You said, yeah, Jim, I like them too. Oh, I know you did, Paul. I know you did. You told me that before, Paul. You told me that 20 years ago when we was talking, when I was the top caller of the show, when I made this show. That's why you're on TV today, Paul, because Jim Tuscaloosa. You know that, Paul. Don't you know it, Paul? And then you got these women calling in. You know what I think about women calling, Paul? I think they ought to be like a country girl down here in Reeltown. They stay barefooted, pregnant, and in the kitchen where they belong. They ain't got no business calling no sports call-in show. They don't know nothing about sports. They need to keep their mouth shut. They need to stay in the kitchen and cook. That's what they need to do, Paul. You know that, and I know that. And old straight jacket Jim, I tell you what.
Hey, Charles, are you married by any chance?
No, I'm not married.
Big surprise. Back after this.
I'm on the prowl, Paul. I'm on the prowl.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Jumbo in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Okay, Jumbo. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, yeah, thank you for taking my call. Hey, I think this Urban Meyer going back to Florida would be huge if they were to do a homecoming. But let me ask you a question. Who do you think is more hated, Nick Saban by LSU fans or Urban Meyer by the Florida fans?
I think right now it's Urban Meyer, and the reason I say that is LSU fans have had a lot of time to digest Nick Saban. I mean, he left after the 2004 season. LSU's won a national championship since then. They won 2 SEC championships, nearly won another national championship. And, yeah, I mean, it's a every other year occurrence, and we were down there when Saban and Alabama and LSU played a few weeks ago. And it's just not quite as big a deal in 2014 as it was in 2008 when he went down there for the first time.
Okay, I agree with that. And also, I want to commend your lady callers. I think it's fantastic. And Charles from Reeltown, he needs to take it easy on the Geritol. And this guy, Ron, from Florida, I'm going to bet him $100 that Tennessee goes into the swamp next year or this year, and they knock Tennessee or they knock Florida off.
Yeah, I think can you put me down for 10 of that 100, okay?
That's fine. I'll put you down for 10. But if Ron wants to bet, I'm a man of my word. I'll bet him $100 straight up. We won't go no points. But I think Tennessee's a lot further ahead than what people think.
I agree.
And I know Alabama fans are going to criticize me for this because they hate them so much. But Tennessee is really becoming a good football team, and everybody needs to wake up and realize these guys are fixing to make a lot of noise this season.
Yeah, you're right. And by the way, I've never bet on a college football game in my life, so I don't want to start. But I'm with you in spirit on that $100 bet. Jerome is next in Birmingham. Good afternoon, Jerome.
What's going on, Paul?
We're doing great.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hey, listen, Paul. I want to respond to the pastor from Arkansas. Listen to me, Paul. It's Thursday, so the pastor got his gin bottle with him today. He ain't worried about his sermon today. That clown had to be drunk because he thinks Arkansas gonna win anything this year, especially SEC. Listen, we don't give a crap about
Jerome,
that.
let me say one thing though. If you are a pastor, whether you're in Arkansas or Alabama, you know the most important thing a pastor has to have, though, don't you?
Yeah, a big enough congregation to pay all his bills.
No. Jerome, what's the most important thing that anyone involved in religion has? It's faith.
Faith.
He has faith in the Hogs.
Well, Paul, I had faith in the Tide this year, but listen, I passed out when that clock said 0, so listen, faith all the time.
Let me ask you a question, Jerome. We talked a couple weeks ago, and you were struggling. It's been 4 weeks ago tonight, that Alabama laid the big egg down in the Superdome. Are you over it yet?
How? I'm still struggling. What are you talking about? Listen, I'm going to be struggling until the season starts next year. You know what Alabama fan is over with, Paul? Our pressure up, temperature up, everything up, Paul. We got to listen to these clowns call in and tell us what they going to do, how they did it, or what Alabama and Auburn going to do. Listen to me, Finebaum, before I let you go. These clowns can sit back. College football belongs to the king of the South, Paul, the state of Alabama. We got Nick, we got Gus, we got Lane, we got Mud. Paul, we got the whole doggone show, Paul. What we need the rest of the country for? And for that clown from Auburn, Tennessee to tell you to change the format of the Paul show, Paul, it come out better just muting that clown, Paul. Block him. We don't need him anyway. He's irrelevant just like the state of Tennessee. Roll Tide and have a good day, Paul.
Good to hear from you. Larry is up next. Larry in Hawaii. Hey, Larry, what's up?
Aloha, Paul. It's nice talking to you.
Aloha.
I'm sitting out here in the Mountain West, and I'm wondering, why is it we can't get the SEC players out here? We've got a great coach in Nom Chow. We couldn't even keep Marcus Mariota here. I don't understand.
Yeah, listen, Larry, I've been there a couple of times, and in basketball, Hawaii has had some success. Football, spotty. It's tough. There was a time when a lot of players would take the visit just for the visit. It's not that big a deal anymore for players because they're so fixated on being on television, being in prime time, and playing for contenders.
Yeah, I would think with a great coach like Nom Chow and the weather out here, these SEC players would be just as happy.
Well, listen, Norm Chow, thanks for the call, Larry. Norm Chow does have a great reputation. He was part of Pete Carroll's glory days, but it's a tough sell. It really is. And they're also a little more circumspect and, hey, I want to visit Hawaii. It's not as easy as it used to be.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Renegade is in Atlanta, and you are next up.
Paul Finebaum, good God Almighty, and a tomahawk chop, my brother.
Good to hear from you.
I feel like I've gone to sports radio heaven. I just want to tell you that. I've waited a long time to get a hold of you, and I love your show. Think you're one of the best personalities in sports. And I, like other people, I enjoy all the callers, the different personalities, and the whole aspect of the show.
Well, I am most pleased to hear that.
I just wanted to tell you one thing and then talk to you about my Seminoles, if I could.
Sure. We'll talk about Florida State once or twice a year.
I came home tonight from a long day at work, and I got home and I said, honey, what's wrong with me? And she said, I don't know. She said, Paul's the player. He gets all those women to call in there and get him bumfuzzled. And I said, you know what I think? If they could come up with a Paul Finebaum horseshoe hair, plastic horseshoe hair with 2 ears, I'd be set. I'd be ready to go.
I think that's doable. I mean, I've been asked a lot of things over the years. I don't think that's even a big challenge, and it would give me it would do my heart good to help a Seminole.
You are the man. Well, listen, Paul, I wanted to say about Jimbo Fisher. I'm real excited about his extension, and I know during the season you kind of gave Jimbo a hard time with the way he treated Jameis, and I really wasn't, online with that with you, but basically because the way Saban has been, not had anything really to do with the way he brought the guy on from Georgia, I guess it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor.
And he just,
you know something, Renegade. One thing about I didn't like it. I made my point, but I tried to move on, and I've always liked Jimbo. I've known him a long time. I didn't think he handled that well, but as I've digested the whole situation 2-3 years in, I think Jimbo became so close to Jameis Winston that he lost a little bit of perspective. He dug in. He defended Jameis. It's over now.
I don't disagree with that, but one thing I want to say before I get hung up, before I'm done.
Okay.
I hope you and everybody else knows that there's 3 coaches in this nation that are the best coaches in college football right now, and Jimbo Fisher can coach. So we're going to have a down year this year, but by the time he's done, he will have done anything Nick Saban's done or Urban Meyer. He just really has gotten the program started, and I truly believe that. But no, I believe,
Renegade, let me say this. He has a chance. He's built a great program there, and he didn't inherit a disaster. He inherited a program that clearly had stayed with Bobby Bowden too long, as much as people don't want to hear that. It lost its way. Urban came in there and really turned that state upside down, but Jimbo has it back now. And I have no doubt Jimbo Fisher and FSU will be back in the college football playoff. Whether he'll match Urban or Saban, Urban's 3 or Saban's 4 national championships, that we might have a more heated conversation about. John is next. John is in Wyoming on a Thursday afternoon. Hey, John.
How you doing, Paul? It's good to talk to you. First-time caller. Love the show.
Thank you.
Big Tennessee fan. You've come a long way since we used to work together. But to keep that big orange train moving, I think we got the right coach. I think we're on the right road. The quarterback gets some time in during the off season. And I think they're on the right road. I think they'll be back in the fight once again. It'll be good too because being a Tennessee fan, SEC fan, it's hard to watch all the other teams do so well. I mean, it's good for the conference. Yes, I love that. And when we win, it's good. It's good for everybody. But being a Tennessee fan, it's hard to sit back and watch everybody else because we really haven't done anything since '98.
John, you're right. I mean, we've seen this a couple of different times. There was great optimism. I can't remember whether it was the second year under Dooley or the third year. And I remember that Florida game day was there. Everybody was buzzing, and then it ended as quickly as it started. I think this is real. I mean, this is a real program. Dooley wasn't a bad coach. He just wasn't a really good coach. He was smart. But he didn't have the fire that Butch Jones has. I mean, Butch Jones is relentless, and that's what it takes.
Yeah, and the thing about Derek, I thought, he's a good person, and I thought he was a good coach. It just didn't work out. And, you've been in it long enough to know good people sometimes get in situations where things just don't work out for them. And I think that happened there. But I think Butch is on the right track. Keep the players, keep everybody in the frame of mind of what they got to take care of, being good people on the field and off the field. I think the program will move forward. Look forward to seeing what comes up in the next year.
Well, John, how long you been in Wyoming?
16 years now.
I want to ask you how cold it is.
It's not too bad today, as a matter of fact. It's been unusual here, January. We've had some 50 days. And that's better than 12 below any day of the week. So, but yeah, it's nice out here, man. Love it out here.
Well, it's a beautiful place. It's great to hear from you again.
Yes, you too, man. Take care.
Thank you. Wyoming is a great place to visit in July. Will is in Gulfport, Mississippi, which isn't a bad place to visit any day of the year. How are you, Will?
Pretty good. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty well.
Excellent. Well, I had one kind of on the Twitter deal, but last back to Oklahoma State, I don't think anyone's talked about.
No, I mean, you forget all about Les in Oklahoma State. He was there a couple of years and really did well, but you don't. Right. It just doesn't. It's not really a hot topic of conversation.
Right. They've really closed the gap the last week or so, kind of moving back up to where they should be. What onus do you put on Coach O and Kevin Steele from in the fold as far as, their influence with the recruiting?
Well, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Don't forget, Kevin Steele was Nick Saban's first hire. He didn't hire him for any other reason than he was a great recruiter at FSU and had been a great recruiter elsewhere. And Orgeron is one of the most relentless recruiters there's ever been. Bruce Feldman, who we had on the other day, wrote a book about 10 years ago called Meat Market. And he spent it's a great book. He spent about.
Is that worth reading?
Well, I wouldn't pay full price right now. It's out for 10 years, but yeah, it is. He spent the entire recruiting season with Orgeron, and it was like, I can't remember. The amount of Red Bull that that Coach O inhaled every day. He should have been the national spokesperson.
I'm telling you, and he had to have an interpreter with him, huh?
You're right. I've only been around him a couple of times and never had a clue what he was talking about.
Hey, have a great show as usual, buddy. You're the man.
Yeah. I saw Orgeron last year at Southern Cal when we were out there for game day, and he was extremely popular. When he took over for Kiffin, they loved him. And there was a lot of thought to actually giving him the job, but I think they made the better decision going with Sark. Let's check in next with Michael in Tuscaloosa. Michael, thank you.
Hey, how you doing, Paul?
Great, thanks a lot.
I was just calling about Charlie from over in Auburn disrespecting the ladies, and I was staying over at the U of A. I'm a student over there, and we respect them completely. So any ladies in Alabama wasn't looking for a good college to come over here. But I'm originally from Missouri, and when I came down to school down here, I wasn't a complete Yankee. I was in southern Missouri. But I learned that Petite's a little bit sweeter and the girls are a little prettier, but Auburn's still the little brother. And I never really understood the rivalry until I came down here. And then as I was at the game, all the Auburn fans were saying that they were going to win, and I was just like, are you serious? And so then I just kind of started looking at the scenery, and they've always thought that they were as good as Alabama, and they don't have the championships in any category. And I was kind of wondering if you could just elaborate on how that rivalry is with Auburn always being the little brother and thinking that they can. Because once we won the game, we didn't have to rub it in their faces because they knew their place again. So I was wondering if you could just elaborate on that.
Yeah, Michael, I mean, really quickly, I think that rivalry many years ago was definitely more one-sided. It's had some bizarre changes. I mean, you had Alabama winning 9 straight in the 70s into the early 80s when Pat Dye finally beat Bear Bryant in 1982. I was on the field as a young reporter, and I feared for my life. I mean, the Auburn fans just poured out. There were 50,000 people about to tear down the goalposts. And then Tommy Tuberville put a streak together, 6 or 7 straight, not all that long ago. And then guess what? Nick Saban showed up, and it's been back and forth ever since. Trading, I mean, think about this: 5 straight appearances in the national championship game for Alabama and Auburn, 3 versus 2. I mean, that's remarkable.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We welcome you back to our program, and it's been a good one today. A lot of conversation later. We'll check in with Bruce Pearl. You heard Jim Donnan and others today talk about what's been going on at the University of Florida and all the SEC. We bring in the man, Tom Luganville. We had a caller on earlier who said, if Luganville doesn't say it, I don't believe it. Tom Luganville joins us. And, Tom, I know National Signing Day is upon us. In terms of the SEC, what stories are you tracking the most closely right now?
I think without question the dynamic between Florida and Auburn, Paul, because, you know, oftentimes when you have a coaching change and you have a staff in transition, rarely is the coach that's dismissed quickly move on to another program, and then rarely does that happen within the same conference. And that's what is challenging Florida right now. You have Will Muschamp, who's established relationships while at the University of Florida, established roots and relationships with kids over the last 15 to 18 months. And now Jim McElwain comes in, is trying to bring in his staff, trying to evaluate, trying to get acclimated, and he's having to compete against the guy that was the former head coach who's already been entrenched with these prospects. So when you consider number 1 ranked offensive tackle Martez Ivey, you consider number 1 ranked overall player Byron Cowart, C.C. Jefferson, these are all players that a lot of people believe are strong Auburn leans that previously were strong Florida leans. So it's a bit of a predicament that most new coaches don't generally have to deal with, because oftentimes in this era now, with the money being what it is, if a coach gets let go, they usually sit out, and you're not contending with them in recruiting. That hasn't been the case here.
Yeah, I mean, it is extraordinary, and not only that, everyone in Florida, from the president on down, just praised Will Muschamp, said, I'd like to have him my son play for him. So you can't turn it around now and start throwing daggers at the guy and his one of his top assistants while they're beating your head in from Auburn. On those players, I realize it's still a little bit early, but what would be considered a success for Florida if, in terms of the last of the big dogs who are out there?
Well, I think 2 out of those 3 that I just mentioned, most notably, you know, Ivy and Cowart, would certainly be a big win for the Gators. And to be honest with you, I think that somehow, some way, Jim McElwain by the end of Wednesday has got to come up with a quarterback answer. And whether that answer is going to be away from another program or somebody that he's out on his own and going to roll the dice on, something's got to happen there. You know, he was one of the first coaches hired, I believe December 4th. And to get through the dead period, come out of the dead period, and not have a ton of results to this point. Listen, I know Jim McElwain and his staff aren't going to be judged upon this class, but you'd like to be able to see them close with just a couple of guys to at least create a core foundation and a nucleus so that you can get into the offseason, get your staff settled down, lay out the blueprint and the plan on how to get there, and hit the ground running in the spring for the 2016 class.
Tom, let's talk about some other classes. We had Coach Butch Jones on yesterday. They seem to be on every recruiting day, National Signing Day hot streak. How good do they look?
Really good. And I would argue that between the 2014 class and the 2015 class, they did an exceptional job in two areas. They've evaluated the right positional needs for where they were deficient, either both due to talent or depth. And then more importantly, they've also been able to evaluate, and a very, very difficult thing to do is evaluating young players that are ready to come in and play and compete for you. And we saw that last year with Josh Malone and Jalen Hurd and Derek Barnett, amongst others, for the Vols. And now they've gone out, and I think they've gotten the similar caliber of player, ones that are going to be expected to play, but also ones that I think are going to be mature enough to play. You look at the defensive tackles, Khalil McKenzie and Shai Tuttle, two prominent fixtures on the interior of the defensive front, and you've heard me say this 100 times, Paul. You build a championship team from the inside out, and Tennessee and Butch Jones know that if they're going to be really good in this conference, they're going to have to compete with the teams that are the big dogs in the trenches, and that's where they're placing their emphasis.
It's been a cliche to say Alabama is going to win the national championship in recruiting this year. I think you told me a year ago that would probably happen in 2015. What's happening late with this class, and do you see any surprises?
I don't see any surprises. I think what we're seeing happening late is them getting to the finish line and avoiding surprises, avoiding defections. This is a class that's been strong and deep for a considerable amount of time. I believe it's been a record with this class, the most ever prospects in the ESPN 300 of any class ever in relationship to their evaluation efforts. And, again, the defensive secondary was addressed, the offensive line, the quarterback position with Blake Barnett. And so they just want to get to the finish line, because the one thing coaches hate to deal with in the last 48 to 72 hours are unforeseen circumstances and surprises.
Tom, let's talk about the other side. You mentioned Florida, which has been a surprise story. We hear about the good. I hate to use the word bad, but what do you see out there, particularly out in Texas, as they're trying to hold on to a quarterback that has been in the camp? His father played there. What's going on out there?
Yeah, there's a lot of tussle back and forth for the services of Kyler Murray between the University of Texas and Texas A&M. And, Texas A&M has been the long-time home for this kid. His dad played there. He's been verbally committed to the Aggies for a considerable amount of time. But listen, in recruiting, this thing goes down to the wire. And if any fan out there thinks that Kevin Sumlin and his staff didn't know that they were going to have to fight for the services of Kyler Murray down to the wire, they're nuts. It's Kevin Sumlin knew it. His staff knows it. They're battling right now. And, listen, if you're going to look at the situation, let's look at both quarterback situations and put ourselves in Kyler Murray's shoes. You had Kenny Hill just completely become unraveled last year, a true freshman that was highly anticipated as being a player, and Kyle Allen comes in and really shows some flashes. So he's got at least 2 years left, okay? So that's A&M's situation. Don't think for 1 second Kyler Murray and his family and that they're not looking at that and realizing and recognizing that. And now you look at Texas and look at what their sales pitch is. I mean, they literally take a snap and it's 2nd and 15. So they're so poor under center at the quarterback spot that you got to be looking at that if you're Kyler Murray and intrigued by it. You could arguably step on the field right away and be a starter. So there's going to be positives and negatives, pros and cons in this decision. And I would argue, and I rarely say these things, Paul, you know this, outside of measurable deficiencies, if this kid was 3 inches taller, I would argue that he's the best quarterback prospect in every category you want to evaluate. Competitiveness, mental toughness, athleticism, arm, release, all of it that we've evaluated in the last 10 years. That's why he's been so hotly pursued and why there's such a tug-of-war going down to the end.
On that subject, and I'm sure this will be part of the marathon on Wednesday. Not only where players are going, but who projects. I know that's a big question, but in the conference, looking ahead a little bit in terms of just shake your head impact. Not only commitments, but signees. Some are already on campus. Where would you go? Where would you start?
You know what? To be honest with you, I think right now, as it stands, there might be more kids that are uncommitted that have a chance to be impact players at the next level, at least early, than there are with committed ones. But if I'm going to go with a committed guy, I think I got to start off with Trenton Thompson, the defensive tackle that's committed to the University of Georgia, because so much of Jeremy Pruitt's scheme, the defensive coordinator, is predicated on body types and scheme versatility and having that big body in the middle. We saw that when the same scheme's been employed at the University of Alabama. That's what he needs and was not on campus when he got there. So when you look at need and opportunity and a talent base to fill that need, I think Trenton Thompson's probably the guy that stands out. From an impact player standpoint, as a pass rusher, it's Byron Cowart regardless of where he signs.
And you alluded right now, Auburn is seemingly the lean. Florida, it's an Auburn-Florida battle, is that correct?
Yeah, Auburn-Florida battle for both Byron Cowart and Martez Ivey. Now, where they're going, I think a lot of people have an opinion of it, but I know this. Neither one of those two players are taking an official visit this weekend. In fact, Martez Ivey's going on a cruise. So, in my opinion, both of those guys already know where they're going.
We'll wait until, how early are they announcing on Wednesday?
I don't know. I'm just hoping to get there and sit down and count the clock down for 11 hours.
Starts at, 7 or 8 Eastern? I've lost track. My alarm clock's
8 Eastern, 8 Eastern, probably 7 Eastern for me.
Okay. Well, we won't pepper you with too many. You'll have plenty of that. Best wishes on the return, and we'll see you Wednesday.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks. Tom Luganville with some insight on National Signing Day. It is coming up, as if you didn't know that already. It's the biggest story in sports, isn't it? After Sunday it will be.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
And we are back with Auburn coach Bruce Pearl. I still have a little bit of difficult time saying that, but I won't have any difficult time saying that Coach Pearl makes his first visit back to Knoxville, where he is beloved, and I'm sure the Tennessee fans will treat him that way on Saturday. Coach, thank you very much, and I know that it's been a tough season. You're trying to get this program rebuilt, and you've come pretty close to some major wins, but regardless of all that, this has to be a pretty special weekend for you.
It is a special weekend, and first we're kind of on schedule, maybe more off the court than on the court, Paul. We've had some great sellouts. We've had fans that have traveled with us. Recruiting has gone well, and we beat Xavier and we beat Oregon State, and the Missouri win, the South Carolina win, and league have been good. Played well at Alabama, but we knew it was going to be a bit of a struggle. I'd like to win a little bit more this year for my seniors, and we still have postseason hopes are still there. Yet we know that because the league's better, it's going to be challenging.
When you had a lead in Tuscaloosa, and that's a place Auburn hasn't won in a long time, and obviously it got away, but what do you take away from a tough road environment against a big rival? Almost do it. I'm sure there has to be a teaching or a learning experience for your team.
Well, I think the most important thing was for about 32 minutes, we kept the crowd out of it. We executed pretty well offensively. We did what we wanted to do defensively. But then when they ratcheted things up and Levi Randall took off, we struggled. We struggled to score down the stretch and obviously didn't rebound our backboard a couple times. And so it was a missed opportunity. But last year Auburn went there, lost by 26. This time Auburn went up there and we led for 30 minutes. So the rivalry is on. We're making progress. And you're right. We learned from it. Now, can we play well on the road again at Tennessee, where we're going to see a team that likes to run and press, and they're capable of running you out of their building?
And on that, and listen, it will become a bigger story as we inch closer to Saturday. But usually, someone goes back. There are mixed feelings. The crowd may or may not treat the coach, but I mean, you are beloved in Knoxville. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but you still have to separate it. It's an important game, and it's a road game. How do you do that?
Well, I was there for 9 years, and my family was there for 9 years, and some of my family's still there. And my Bible study brothers are still there, people that I worked with and for. So you don't just, that doesn't go out the window. I'm an Auburn man. I'm part of the Auburn family, but there's a part of me that's still evolved for life. I mean, you've moved on from Tennessee. You went to school there. It's still a part of you wherever you go. And so emotionally, it'll be hard before the game. Walking into that building will be difficult. There were graduations there. There were great wins over number one ranked teams in the country there. There was a $1 million night where my wife and I raised $1 million for the Cancer Institute. It's never happened before. And we did that after we got fired. It was a special evening to be able to do those things in that building. And so to go back and be on the other bench, probably emotional beforehand. Once the ball goes up, it will not be like any other game, other than I know we're going to be playing in one of the most hostile, loudest, biggest environments that you'll play in all season long.
And I realize, and you said it very, very eloquently, you're an Auburn man now, but that program, since you left, has had some utterly bizarre times. The coach last year took the team far, and then he departed. There's some issues now. I realize you can't help but hear about it, but I also know you can't focus on it. But how interested are you in what happens with that program?
Two things about that. One, I apologize for having gotten the program on probation, but my coaching staff and we bared the brunt of the penalty from the NCAA, as we should have. And I'd like to think that we left the program in better shape. We left Jordan McCray and Jerome Mayman and Skylar McBee, had recruited Stokes. And the most important thing, Paul, was a culture of winning was established. Those Tennessee kids, when they played against Florida or even Kentucky or Vanderbilt, they expected to win. That took years to be able to develop that. And the crowds were huge. Now, they dwindled some, but the base stayed. And look at what Donnie Tyndall's doing right now. The crowds are back even more. He's coaching them up. For me, Cal, Billy Kennedy, or Donnie Tyndall, the top three guys for Coach of the Year in the SEC. And I hope Donnie survives. I truly do. I don't know anything about the extent of the problems that Southern missed. But when you hire a coach, you got to be through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if what he did there was not so major that they can't live with it, I sure hope they stay with it. He's an outstanding coach, a really good man, and that basketball program that I still care about needs the stability.
Yeah, and again, I promise you, it was not my intent to drag you into that, but it is. I just couldn't help but see, not so much the irony, but just the situation where.
Oh, you worried about me saying the wrong thing at this point in my career? Really?
Well,
you can ask me just about anything at this point. With everything that I think, it doesn't matter. It's going to come right from here. It's not necessarily going to come from here.
Well, no, but my point was, and you answered it, that it's a program that you can't help but care about. And I thought to what you said a moment ago, you got fired. You could have taken a lot of paths, but you took the positive path. You paid the price, but you kept giving back, and I think you continue to give back to that school and that community.
Well, it just doesn't, because we couldn't have done what we did without the community and without the school and without the involvement of so many friends, that supported it, that donated, that traveled, that made it important. Like, we're going to go back to Knoxville, and on Friday night, the night before the game, we're going to have a fundraising event. So all my friends and family are going to have to pay money again so that we can donate money actually to a University of Tennessee charity called Camp Conia. I just think it's the right thing to do. And just because you leave a community doesn't mean you need to leave it lock, stock, and barrel. And but I tell you what, I'm loving it here at Auburn. It is. You told me I'd like it here because it's a special place. It's a great fit for me and my family right now, and I'm just hoping that I can do the same things at Auburn in the community and to a certain extent even on the basketball court that I was able to do at Tennessee.
A year ago, you were working for ESPN commenting on leagues like the SEC, so I'll try to move you over to the commentator role for a second. You said you think the SEC is getting better. Sometimes there are games that are still pretty difficult to watch. What's the state of this league right now?
Well, they're difficult to watch throughout college basketball because the shot clock is too long. There's too many fouls called at the end of the game, and we need to limit timeouts, and we got to move the game faster in the last 4 or 5 minutes. But I think the league is getting better. Recruiting is really good in the future. We're getting better players to come in the league. Attendance is up. The RPI numbers are up. And I think when you look at our league and you say, okay, right now, who are the teams at the bottom of the league? Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Auburn, Missouri. Those are your bottom 5 teams right now, and that's just right now. Hey, South Carolina beat Iowa State on January 3rd on a neutral court. You know, Vanderbilt's got some big wins. We beat Xavier and Oregon State. Mississippi State beat Florida State. The middle and the bottom of our league are way, way up. Now, can Arkansas and LSU or Georgia or Florida or Alabama, Texas A&M continue to do what they're doing? Paul, I still think this is a league that's going to get 5 and maybe 6. Things have got to fall right for those teams, but I definitely see things starting to move in the right direction. The recruiting is very, very strong in the future, and obviously we've got the best program in the country in Kentucky.
And I'd like to close by asking you about that. We talked to Cal the other day, and he certainly is enjoying the moment, and not many coaches have had the kind of talent that he has. I realize Kentucky isn't your main concern, but you know plenty about them. What do you think? Can they run the table?
They can, and keep in mind it is a 40-minute game, and in a 40-minute game in a one-shot deal, I couldn't see them ever losing 3 out of 5 in a playoff situation or 4 out of 7. No way. But it is a 40-minute game, so do I think they'll run the table? Yeah. Would Cal be concerned if he lost to get one game along the way and have that help him win the national championship? He'd take that in a heartbeat. He's the best in the business at doing what he does right now, getting this collection of talent, getting to play hard and unselfishly, getting to focus on right now. They're playing better defense than any Kentucky team he's ever had. I mean, not only are they talented, they guard you right. They do all the right things defensively, make it impossible to score, and they've got better free throw shooters and three-point shooters. The combination of all that, I think it makes it really, really going to make it really difficult for somebody to beat them.
A lot of people have forgotten that you went to Memphis a couple of years ago. They were number 1. You won that game. Tennessee was number 1 not too long after that. A lot has changed, but you're heading back to Knoxville this weekend. Coach, always great to visit, and best wishes.
Thank you, Paul. Same to you.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN radio app.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.